The year Daniel Anderson and Sarah Miller got engaged, his mother brought Dylan Evans, the son of a deceased Army buddy, to live with them. In just a few short months, both his sister and his fiance had fallen for this boy who was like a brother, but with no blood relation. His childhood sweetheart made a scene, demanding to call off their engagement for him. "I've told you, I never liked Daniel. He has that spoiled rich kid attitude. He's not half the man Dylan is." For Dylan, his own sister snatched their father's most precious heirloom and gave it away. "Daniel, when are you going to learn some generosity? Dylan is an orphan. Do you really have to fight him for everything?" Even his mother spent his birthday taking Dylan to the stables, a place Daniel had always wanted to go with her. She told him, "Daniel, you've had every luxury. Dylan grew up with nothing. He's never experienced these things. I'll celebrate with you next year." He could only watch as his family showered Dylan with affection. Daniel Anderson clutched the diagnostic report from the hospital and booked a flight out of the country. The very day Sarah Miller had agreed to marry him, he got in touch with a relationship streamer online. "Hi, I need you to make a call for me to Sarah Miller. Just say you're calling on behalf of a Mr. Evans. Tell her I heard she's getting married, that I'm heartbroken, and that I can't forget her. Then ask her if she still has feelings for me." The moment the streamer connected the call, Sarah's annoyed voice came on the line. Hello, Miss Miller. I'm a streamer. A Mr. Evans asked me to call you. He said he can't forget you, and he wanted to know if you still love him." The line went silent. The streamer prompted her. "Miss Miller?" "I do," she finally said. "I love him." The call disconnected, and the streamer said excitedly, "Mr. Evans, she loves you. I hope you two can finally be together." Daniel just smiled. "Thanks, but my name isn't Evans. I'm the guy she's supposed to marry, and I won't be marrying her anymore." The streamer's face was a mask of shock, unable to speak for a long moment. The live chat was flying, but Daniel just quietly turned off his phone. It wasn't long before Sarah's call came through. "Daniel, I'm calling off the engagement. The person I love isn't you." Daniel said nothing, simply hanging up the phone. Sarah was clearly in a rush, wasting no time to end things with him the moment she thought Dylan's feelings were confirmed. He turned his head and glanced out the window. The snow was falling heavily today, and the weather was cold, but not as cold as his heart. He finally decided to go out, driving alone to the Miller's family home. When he arrived at the Millers, Sarah was already kneeling in the snow, pleading with her parents to call off her marriage to Daniel. She shivered violently in the cold, but her expression was one of absolute determination. It was as if she would kneel there forever if her parents didn't agree. "Daniel, you're here. It's so cold out, please come inside." Mrs. Miller greeted him with a troubled look on her face. Daniel sat on the sofa, his gaze falling on Sarah, still kneeling in the snow outside. Her face was pale and her body trembled. She must have been out there for a long time. "That foolish girl, don't pay her any mind," Mr. Miller said. "She was perfectly fine with this marriage before. I don't know what's gotten into her, suddenly demanding to cancel it." "Daniel, don't you worry. Your father's dying wish was for you to marry Sarah, and I will not disappoint him." Before Daniel could say a word, Sarah burst into the room. "Daniel, stop clinging to me. Sarah Miller, meant what I said, and I'm not taking it back. I don't love you, and I will not marry you." "You foolish girl, be quiet." Her father was so furious, he looked ready to strike her. Mrs. Miller quickly intervened. "Don't do that. Let's just talk to her calmly." "Talk about what?" "She's completely stubborn. What's left to say?" In high school, she was the one who was desperate to marry Daniel. A young girl, shamelessly begging us to approach the Andersons about it. And now, just a few years later, she wants to call it off? Is marriage a game to her? Something she can just cancel on a whim? Daniel thought back to years ago, when Sarah followed him around every day like a shadow. She had even sworn to him that she would marry him one day. Daniel remembered that the snow had been falling just as heavily on that day, too. He had stood under a streetlight and asked her, "I have this arrogant attitude, and I'm not very cheerful. Can you really love someone like me?" She had looked at him with such affection. "No, Daniel, I know that's just a front. You're not really like that. You just need to be loved." And now, all those words meant nothing. The room was in chaos, and the shouting was giving him a headache. Before Daniel could get a word in, two figures appeared in the doorway. It was his sister, Rachel, and Dylan. Dylan was covered in snow, his clothes thin and his frame gaunt. He leaned on Rachel for support as he approached them. Seeing the red mark on Sarah's cheek, he rushed forward and pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. If you're going to blame anyone, blame me. Don't be angry with Sarah. She was only taking pity on me. Noticing how lightly he was dressed, Sarah's brow furrowed and her voice softened. Didn't I tell you? You're not well. You can't get chilled. Why would you come all the way out here in the snow to find me? He heard you were fighting with your parents and insisted on coming, Rachel said, her voice full of concern. He's still running a fever. Sarah hugged him, her heart aching. Dylan, why are you so foolish? Daniel, Dylan said, turning to him, I know I've wronged you, but I'm begging you, please let Sarah and I be together. He then knelt before Daniel. When Sarah tried to help him up, he shook his head, his face deathly pale. I know you blame me for coming here and taking Rachel and Sarah's affection, he continued, but I swear it wasn't intentional. Ignoring Dylan's masterful performance, Daniel's eyes locked onto the jade pendant around his neck, and he shot to his feet. What is that around your neck? Sarah immediately shielded Dylan behind her, shouting, Daniel, what are you doing? You will not hurt him. Dylan looked panicked as well, saying cautiously, I just thought the pendant was beautiful, and Rachel said I could have it. Rachel? Daniel stared at his sister in disbelief. Dad gave that to me before he died. How could you just give it to Dylan behind my back? Rachel was completely dismissive. What's the big deal? And don't forget what Mom said, Daniel. Anything in this house is Dylan's for the asking. Her words were a knife twisting in Daniel's heart. It was true. From the day Dylan had walked through their door, his first love, his sister, and even his own mother had all become Dylan's. The one thing his father had left him was his alone. Give it back to me, Daniel said, his eyes turning cold. Dylan quickly removed the jade pendant and held it out. I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't know it was from your father. I just admired it, and Rachel gave it to me. Here, I'll give it back right now. But before it reached Daniel's hand, the pendant slipped and fell to the floor. It shattered with a sharp crack. Daniel froze, the rage he had been suppressing finally exploding. Dylan, you did that on purpose. Unable to control himself, he shoved Dylan hard. Daniel, have you lost your mind? Rachel screamed. Dylan stumbled backward, collapsing into Sarah's arms. Rachel rushed forward and shoved Daniel away. It was an accident. He didn't mean to. It's just a stupid pendant. Do you have to act like this? Besides, you're the one who didn't catch it properly, so it's your own fault. Rachel had pushed him so hard that Daniel fell, a sharp piece of the shattered jade cutting into his hand. The pain was sharp and real. He looked at the sister who had once cherished him more than anyone, now turning on him with such violence. Daniel pressed his lips together, his eyes turning red. Daniel, his mother said, come and help him. He didn't move, instead gathering the broken pieces of the pendant from the floor. Dad, I'm so sorry. I couldn't even protect the last thing you left for me. It's my fault, Dylan whispered. Don't blame Daniel. I deserved it. Before he could finish, he fainted. Sarah and Rachel gasped, rushing to his side in a panic. Rachel's face went pale with worry. His fever hasn't broken. He's burning up. Sarah, call a doctor now. Dylan, are you okay? Sarah scooped Dylan into her arms and shot Daniel a look of pure hatred. Daniel, if anything happens to him, I will make you pay. With that threat, she ignored the furious expressions on her parents' faces and had a servant carry Dylan upstairs. The rest of the Miller family turned their gazes on Daniel. Rachel spoke, her voice filled with anger. Daniel, just stop it. Sarah doesn't love you. You're moody and entitled. Dylan is gentle and kind, and he suffered so much in his life. Can't you just let him have this? He clenched the broken pieces in his hand, the sharp edges digging into his palm. Blood dripped from his fist, drop by shocking drop. He seemed to feel no pain as he simply nodded. Fine. Rachel thought she must have misheard him. What did you say? I said fine, Daniel repeated, his voice calm. I agreed to call off the engagement. Rachel let out a sigh of relief. Daniel, you're finally growing up. Don't worry. Your mother and I will find someone even better for you. Someone better? Daniel gave a small, bitter smile. There was no need. He was already dying. He didn't have much time left. Just a few days after his mother had brought Dylan home, he had gotten his test results back. The report stated that he had inherited his father's nasopharyngeal carcinoma and didn't have long to live. He hadn't had the chance to tell anyone before he overheard Sarah confessing her feelings to Dylan, promising she would break off her engagement to Daniel. When Daniel remained silent, Rachel finally noticed his hand. Daniel, you're bleeding. Let me take you to the hospital. She moved toward him, but he subtly took a step back, putting space between them. His instinctive retreat made Rachel's expression harden. You know what, Daniel? You deserve it. The pendant is broken, so what? Why are you picking up the pieces and hurting yourself? Who are you trying to guilt trip? Why can't you be more like Dylan? Daniel ignored her, said his goodbyes to the Millers, and went home. When he arrived, his mother was on the sofa, sorting through a stack of papers. She smiled warmly when she saw him. Daniel, come and sit. His hand was now bandaged, but his mother didn't seem to notice. She was going over the family's assets and had drawn up a shopping list. Mom, what are you doing? Oh, Dylan's getting married, isn't he? I'm figuring out how much to give him as a wedding gift. I've calculated it out. We'll need to buy him a house, a car. Even all the things we set aside for you won't be enough. There are so many little things, I have to write it all down. Seeing how serious his mother was, a pain shot through Daniel's chest. Mom, how did you know Dylan was getting married? Well, she began, her expression shifting. She seemed to want to explain, but couldn't find the words. But Daniel understood everything perfectly. His mother had known all along that Sarah had fallen for Dylan. She had already planned for Sarah to marry him instead. She was even going to give Dylan all the money and gifts that had been set aside for his own wedding to Sarah. Mom, I'm your son, aren't I? Why does everyone dote on Dylan so much? Why does everyone love him? Why are you all treating me like this? The pain and injustice he felt finally broke through, and his eyes turned red with unshed tears. Daniel, Dylan has had a hard life. His mother was my dearest friend, and now that she's gone, I have to treat him as my own son. His hard life has nothing to do with me. It's not my fault, so why am I the one who has to give up everything for him? Daniel's expression was grim. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a wooden box. His heart clenched. What's that? Daniel, you look tired. Why don't you go upstairs and rest? His mother tried to stop him, but she wasn't fast enough. Daniel grabbed the box and opened it. Inside were the gold bars his father had left him, a gift for each of his birthdays. His father had told him they were for when he got married. Daniel's hands trembled. You were going to give these to Dylan too? Dylan grew up without parents. He just liked, so I have to give him anything he likes? He wanted my mother's affection. I gave it. He wanted my sister's. I gave that too. I've even given him my fiance. But this is what my father left for me. I will never, ever give it to him. He was so agitated that his nose suddenly started to bleed. The metallic scent of blood filled his senses, and he panicked, grabbing for a tissue to wipe it away. His mother was startled. Daniel, what's wrong? Daniel, what kind of stunt are you pulling now? Just then, Rachel walked in. Seeing Daniel looking pitiful, she immediately launched into a tirade. Stop playing the victim. You're a grown man. Aren't you tired of all this drama? Do you really think this act is going to make us feel sorry for you? I'm so sick of it. Daniel just kept pulling tissues, trying to stop the bleeding. A pile of blood-soaked tissues filled the trash can before the bleeding finally subsided. He didn't expect any pity from Rachel or any concern from his mother. All he wanted now was to protect what his father had left him. As he turned to head upstairs, his mother stopped him. Daniel, it's your birthday tomorrow. How about I take you to those stables you've always wanted to visit? Daniel froze. He had asked his mother to go to the stables with him so many times. He wasn't a child anymore, but his mother had been in the military and was rarely home when he was growing up. They had never been to the stables together, and now he wanted that experience. Okay, he agreed. He nodded and carried his father's box upstairs. Even from his room, he could hear Rachel complaining to their mother. Mom, Daniel is getting so out of control. He hit Dylan at the Miller's house, and Dylan fainted. He's still over there now. What? How could Daniel do such a thing? Come on, I'm going over there myself to bring Dylan home. Watching the two of them hurry out the door, the light in Daniel's eyes slowly faded. Dad, he whispered to the empty room. Mom and Rachel don't love me anymore. But you still love me, right? I'll be with you soon. Determined not to miss his outing with his mother, Daniel set multiple alarms. He wanted to wake up early so they could get to the stables and ride. Dylan was brought home that night, and when he heard that the next day was Daniel's birthday and that Mrs. Anderson was taking him to the stables, he was consumed with jealousy. To stop Daniel from going, he snuck into Daniel's bedroom. He turned off all the alarms and locked the door from the outside. The next morning, Mrs. Anderson and Rachel were waiting downstairs. Daniel still hadn't appeared, and Rachel was getting impatient. What is his problem? Does he think he can do whatever he wants just because it's his birthday? He's a grown man with no sense of time. Just as she was about to go upstairs to get him, Dylan came running down. Rachel, Mrs. Anderson, Daniel said he doesn't want to go to the stables anymore. He wants to sleep in. You have got to be kidding me, Rachel snapped. What is his problem now? Mrs. Anderson just sighed. Well, if he doesn't want to go, then that's that. Rachel, Mrs. Anderson, I've never been to the stables before, Dylan said, his eyes welling up as he put on a pitiful expression. Seeing this, the two women's faces softened. "Well then, how about we take you riding today?" Dylan's lips curved into a happy smile. "Okay." When Daniel woke up, it was already 9 in the morning. The sun was bright outside, and a sense of unease washed over him. He glanced at his alarm clock and saw the time. None of the alarms he had set had gone off, and his phone was missing. He jumped out of bed and tried the door, only to find it was locked from the outside. He couldn't get it open. "Mom, Rachel." No matter how loud he yelled, there was no answer. Even the household staff couldn't hear him. Then he remembered it was Sunday, and all the staff had the morning off. What am I going to do? Daniel felt a surge of frustration. His mother was supposed to take him to the stables. Left with no other option, he tied his bedsheets together, secured them to the window frame, and began to climb down from the second story. Halfway down, the knot gave way, and he fell hard onto the ground below. The pain was intense, but he ignored it. The house was empty. Rachel and his mother were gone. He quickly changed his clothes and rushed to the stables, only to find Dylan there with his family. His mother, a skilled rider from her army days, was patiently teaching Dylan how to ride, guiding him again and again. Sarah was there too. The three women fussed over Dylan, attending to his every need. When Dylan accidentally fell from his horse, his mother rushed to his side, tending to his scrapes with a pained expression. "Are you hurt? Does it sting? Let me put some antiseptic on it for you," she said. "I'm fine, Mom. I'm a grown man. A little fall is nothing," Dylan replied, brushing himself off and getting back on the horse. He learned quickly, and soon the four of them were laughing and riding across the fields, having the time of their lives. This was everything Daniel had wanted. He stood alone, watching as Dylan lived the life that should have been his eyes blurring with tears. After leaving the stables, worried that Dylan might be hungry, they took him out for a meal. They all ordered his favorite dishes, making sure he had more than enough to eat. "Dylan, get whatever you want," his mother said. "And after we eat, we'll do whatever you feel like doing." Sarah rested her chin on her hand, gazing at Dylan with pure adoration. Dylan smiled. "You're all so good to me." Daniel stood in the distance, watching them, feeling like a thief stealing a glimpse of a happiness that wasn't his. He remembered his birthdays before Dylan arrived. They were always a big celebration. His mother would throw a huge party for him. Rachel knew how much he loved fireworks, and she would spend hours setting them off in the backyard. Sarah would show up first thing in the morning with a pile of thoughtful, surprising gifts. But this year, they had all forgotten him. Their hearts had room only for Dylan. "I had so much fun today," Dylan said, his head lowered in feigned sadness. "I wish it was my birthday. I've never really had a proper birthday celebration in my whole life." Sarah's heart went out to him, and she hugged him. "Then let's make today your birthday. We'll celebrate for you." To celebrate, they took him to a luxury watch store. "Happy birthday, Dylan. Pick out whatever you want. I'll buy it for you," his mother said. "That's right, Dylan," Rachel added. "Pick anything you like, it's my treat." "Me too," Sarah chimed in. "Anything you want, it's on me." Dylan obediently picked out the most inexpensive watch in the case, but Sarah scoffed at his choice and bought him the flashiest, most expensive diamond watch they had. "Daniel took your pendant, so I'm giving you this watch. Don't be sad anymore," she said. "Thank you, Sarah," Dylan murmured, leaning in to kiss her on the cheek. Seeing the radiant smile on Sarah's face and the looks of adoration from his mother and Rachel, Daniel felt a sharp, stabbing pain in his chest. He turned to leave, but a wave of dizziness washed over him, and he collapsed to the ground. As he lay there, the three women he loved most in the world were still fussing over Dylan, completely oblivious. A crowd of strangers gathered around him, their faces etched with concern. "Sir, are you all right? What happened?" Staring up at the unfamiliar faces, Daniel's vision blurred, and he lost consciousness. He woke up in a hospital bed. "Mr. Anderson," the doctor said, "your condition is worsening. I strongly advise you to begin treatment immediately." It was already dark outside. He struggled to get out of the hospital bed, wanting to go home. "No, doctor, I need to go home. Let me call your family then. They can come and get you." Feeling too weak to argue, Daniel gave him Rachel's number. When the call connected, it was Dylan who answered. "Hello, Daniel." "Dylan, where's Rachel?" "She's busy. You can tell me what you need." "Put her on the phone," Daniel insisted. Dylan then deliberately shouted, "Rachel, it's for you. I think it's Daniel. Ignore it. Come on, the food's ready." The line went dead. Daniel blinked, his heart sinking lower and lower. The doctor tried calling his mother, and then Sarah, but neither of them picked up. He had no choice but to get a cab home himself. When he arrived, the backyard was filled with the sounds of laughter. They were all gathered around, singing happy birthday to Dylan. Dylan, dressed in a new suit and wearing the diamond watch, stood with his eyes closed, making a wish. I wish I could be this happy forever. Sarah smiled at him adoringly. You will be silly. Daniel lowered his head and went upstairs. In his room, he pulled out a photo album. It was filled with pictures of his mother and father. There were also countless photos of him with Rachel and Sarah. They had all grown up together, and the pictures chronicled their lives. The gifts they'd given him over the years filled an entire room, overflowing from the shelves. Daniel walked into the room, and his eyes fell on a snow globe. Sarah had given it to him for his 10th birthday. Inside, a prince and princess danced in a swirl of snow. When you wound it up, the figures would dance to music as the snow fell. He flipped the switch, but it was broken. Just like his love for Sarah, it was gone. He took out a large trash bag and, one by one, threw every gift they had ever given him into it. As he carried the bag downstairs, he saw Sarah standing in the foyer. Daniel decided to finally get out of bed. Her words were so absurd, Daniel almost laughed. Did she really think he had been sleeping in his room this whole time? He gave her a cold glance and looked away, handing the heavy bag to the housekeeper. Mrs. Wallace, please throw this out. Sir, but aren't these all your most treasured possessions? The housekeeper glanced inside the bag, recognizing his most cherished items. Just throw them away, he said. I don't want them anymore. He turned to go back upstairs. Sarah watched him go, a deep frown on her face. She didn't know why, but she felt that Daniel had changed so much recently. Before, if he'd seen her, he would have immediately rushed to her side. Now, he barely even looked at her. He seemed thinner, too. His shirt hung loosely on his frame. Daniel, it's your birthday, too. We're having cake and a bonfire in the backyard. Are you going to join us? Sarah called after him. Daniel nodded. Okay, I'll just grab something and be right down. He went upstairs and took the photo albums. He left the ones with his father, but took all the others downstairs with him. When Dylan saw him, he brought over a slice of cake. Daniel, you came. Have some cake. Mom got it for me, for us. Daniel glanced at the cake, but made no move to take it. I'm not hungry. Seeing his refusal, Rachel's temper flared. Daniel, are you done with your drama? Dylan is trying to be nice and offer you some cake, and you're going to act like this? Have Mom and I spoiled you so much that you've forgotten all your manners? His mother chimed in. Daniel, you really need to work on that attitude. Dylan was just being kind. Rachel, Mom, Daniel said, his voice weary as he looked up at them. I'm allergic to mango. Did you forget? The women froze. Rachel and her mother exchanged a look, a flicker of guilt in their eyes. It was true. Daniel had a severe mango allergy. It gave him a terrible rash and could even trigger an asthma attack. When they bought the cake, they had only been thinking about how much Dylan loved mango and had completely forgotten about Daniel's allergy. Seeing the looks on their faces, Daniel felt a sharp, indescribable pain, as if his heart were being pricked by 1,000 needles. He glanced at the bonfire and tossed the photo albums he was holding into the flames. Sarah walked over to him. What are you burning? She asked curiously. Nothing important, he replied. Just some trash. The flames immediately consumed the albums. The warmth of the fire washed over him, but Daniel felt nothing but cold. He turned to leave, but Dylan stopped him. In a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, he said, Daniel, please stay and celebrate with us. Then he leaned in and whispered in Daniel's ear, Do you see, Daniel? Your mother, your sister, your fiance, they're all mine now. And one day, everything in this house will be mine, including those gold bars your father left you. Oh, and by the way, your alarm didn't go off this morning because I turned it off last night. I locked your door, too. Dylan, you bastard. You will not touch what my father left me. Dylan's words sent Daniel into a blind rage. He shoved him, and Dylan, using the momentum, threw himself backward into the old wisteria trellis in the yard. With a loud crack, the fragile trellis collapsed. Daniel stood frozen, watching it fall. Across from him, the three women had already pulled Dylan to safety, shielding him with their bodies. Daniel couldn't get out of the way in time. A heavy wooden beam crashed down on his back, and a searing, bone-deep pain shot through him. He cried out, Rachel, Mom, but it was as if they hadn't heard him. They were all crowded around Dylan, asking anxiously, Dylan, are you okay? Are you hurt? Sarah, her face white with fear, pulled him into a protective embrace. Yes, Dylan. Did any of it hit you? I'm okay, he said, his face contorted in pain. I think I just twisted my ankle. The three women panicked, calling for a staff member to help get Dylan to the hospital. As they were leaving, Daniel managed to call out, "Mom," but his voice was too weak, and they didn't hear him. As Sarah was leaving, she had a nagging feeling she was forgetting something, but she pushed it aside and drove away without a backward glance. The yard fell silent, the only sound the crackling of the bonfire. The noise seemed to grow louder and louder in the silence, filling Daniel with a sense of despair. Blood was now pouring from his nose, staining his shirt. He lay on the ground, unable to move. It wasn't until the housekeeper found him that he got help. "Sir, oh my goodness, are you all right? I'll get you out of there." The housekeeper struggled, but managed to free him and get him to the hospital. The doctor examined him. His back was badly bruised from the falling timber, but it wasn't the most serious issue. The cancer was far more pressing. "Mr. Anderson, are you sure you don't want to tell your family?" the doctor asked. Daniel blinked. He didn't know how much longer he could take this. The way his mother and sister ignored him was a constant, aching pain. If they knew he was sick, that he was dying, surely they wouldn't treat him this way. Finally, he nodded. "They're here at the hospital. I'll go tell them." He found out which room Dylan was in and stood in the doorway, watching the three women bustling around inside. Rachel was peeling an apple for Dylan. His mother was pouring him a glass of water, and Sarah was telling him jokes to make him laugh. In reality, Dylan had nothing more than a sprained ankle, but they were treating him with such immense care. And what about him? He had been crushed under the trellis, and they hadn't even given him a second glance. A deep, unshakable cold spread from his heart through his entire body. He took a deep breath and stepped into the room. When Sarah saw him, her expression turned to ice. "Daniel, what are you doing here? Did you come to hurt Dylan again? He wouldn't even be in the hospital if it weren't for you." Daniel ignored her, his eyes fixed on his mother and sister. "Rachel, Mom, can you come here for a second? I have something I need to tell you." "Just say it here," Rachel said coldly. "We're busy taking care of Dylan." Daniel had no choice but to lick his dry lips, his voice heavy as he said, "I'm sick. I have cancer." A loud laugh erupted from Rachel, as if he had just told the funniest joke in the world. "Daniel, you'll really say anything to get our attention, won't you? Cancer? Why not just say you're dying while you're at it?" His mother looked a little concerned. "Daniel, that's not something to joke about." Sarah's expression shifted. "Daniel, you better not be lying." Dylan quickly climbed out of bed. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I know you're angry with me. I shouldn't have taken your mother and sister away on your birthday. I've just never had a real birthday before. But telling a lie like this, cursing yourself, it's only going to hurt everyone." "Exactly," Rachel said. "Mom, don't believe him. We've spoiled him rotten, and now he's just a liar." Daniel stared at them in disbelief. These were the people who had always loved him most. What had happened to them? "If you don't believe me, go ask the doctor. For all we know, you paid the doctor to lie for you." Rachel shot back. "Daniel, I don't want to see you right now. Get out of here. And I swear, if you pull a stunt like this again, I wouldn't shed a tear even if you really did die." Her words hung in the air, and in that moment, Daniel's last hope for his sister died. He let out a bitter laugh and nodded. "Fine, I'll go." "Rachel," he thought, "I hope you don't regret this one day." He slowly turned and walked away. Watching his gaunt figure retreat, Sarah felt a pang of pity. She started to go after him, but Dylan cried out, "My ankle. It hurts so much." Sarah turned her attention back to Dylan, helping him back into bed. "Then don't move around so much. We'll go home soon." When Daniel got home, he went out to the backyard. The wisteria trellis had collapsed, leaving the yard in a mess. His father and mother had built it together the year they moved into the house. Because both he and Rachel loved wisteria, their father had decided to build a trellis for them. He and Rachel had planted the wisteria vine themselves. "Mrs. Wallace," he said to the housekeeper, "please have someone come and repair this tomorrow." It was something his father had built, and he didn't want to lose it, but he knew he wouldn't be there to see the wisteria bloom next summer. "Of course, sir. You should go upstairs and get some rest. I'll call someone first thing in the morning." Daniel went back to his room. After he finished packing, he looked at the plane ticket in his hand. The flight was for tomorrow. He was leaving. He was going to leave this house and find somewhere no one knew him, a place where he could disappear quietly. He put the ticket away and took one last look around his room. His parents had decorated it for him. He remembered the day they finished. His mother had pulled him into a hug and said, "This is our little prince's room. I promise I'll make you the happiest boy in the world." His sister had added, "Daniel will always be my favorite little brother, my little prince." In just a few short years, everything had changed. He pulled his gaze away and placed his medical file and a diagnostic report into a small box. He would leave it for the housekeeper to give to his mother and Rachel after he was gone. Whether they believed it then or not, it wouldn't matter. They would never find him. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He wished on the stars that when he died, his father would be there to meet him. Then, he would have no regrets. He finally drifted off around dawn, only to be woken by the sound of a chainsaw. He rushed downstairs and saw a group of workers in the backyard, hauling away the broken trellis. Another worker was holding a chainsaw, having just cut down the wisteria vine his father had planted. As he watched the vine fall, Daniel's body began to shake, his eyes burning with rage. "What are you doing?" he demanded, his voice trembling as he clenched his fists at his sides. Dylan saw him and sauntered over, a smug look on his face. "Isn't it obvious? This trellis is what hurt me yesterday, so your mother and sister said it had to be torn down. I don't like wisteria anyway, so there was no reason to keep the plant. My father planted that vine for me. What right do you have to destroy it?" Any calm he had felt was shattered by Dylan's words. Daniel glared at his smug face, his chest heaving with rage. Dylan was taken aback by his fury. Before he could react, Daniel's hands were around his throat. "Dylan, you've taken everything from me, and now you're destroying what my father left me. Don't think I won't kill you right here, right now." Choking, Dylan gasped out, "Daniel, you're insane. Let me go. Mrs. Anderson, Rachel, help me." Hearing the shouts, Mrs. Anderson came running out of the house. Seeing Daniel choking Dylan, she rushed forward and pulled him off. Before Daniel could even regain his balance, she slapped him hard across the face. "Daniel, you have gone too far." She had hit him with all her strength. Daniel's ears rang, and he could taste blood in his mouth. His cheek was numb. He couldn't even feel the pain. He stood there, his head turned to the side, not moving. "Mrs. Anderson, please don't blame Daniel," Dylan said. "He just can't stand seeing you all be so nice to me." He didn't mean it. Dylan's words were like pouring gasoline on a fire. His mother comforted him. "It's all right, Dylan. Don't be scared. He's just a spoiled brat who's used to getting his way." Then she turned back to Daniel and screamed, "Daniel, how could you be my son? You've always been entitled, but you were never cruel. You are such a disappointment. You're not half the man Dylan is." Her words echoed in his ears, but he couldn't make them out over the ringing. He couldn't hear what she was saying anymore, but from the look on her face, he knew she was screaming at him. He blinked and let out a cold, bitter laugh. His mother had never even raised her voice to him before, let alone hit him. And now for Dylan, she had struck him. An overwhelming bitterness washed over him, and he said nothing. He just stared at the woman before him, his eyes full of sorrow. Seeing his expression, his mother started to say something. "Daniel," but he didn't give her the chance. He turned and walked back into the house. When he came back downstairs with his suitcase, the house was empty. The housekeeper told him that his mother and sister had taken Dylan out for a nice meal to make him feel better. He nodded and handed the small metal box to her. "Mrs. Wallace, please give this to my mother and sister." "Sir, why don't you give it to them yourself? Where are you going?" The housekeeper looked at him with concern, her eyes falling on the red mark on his cheek, and her heart ached for him. Before Dylan came, Daniel had been the cherished son of the house. His mother and sister wouldn't have dreamed of even scolding him. And now they had hit him. "I'm just going away for a few days," he said. Daniel dragged his suitcase to the airport. As the plane lifted off the runway, Daniel wearily closed his eyes. "Rachel, Mom, Sarah," he thought, just as you wanted. "I'm leaving, and you'll never see me again." In an elegant steakhouse, Rachel was having dinner with Dylan. Dylan, who had never really had steak before, struggled awkwardly with his knife and fork. Rachel patiently cut his steak into pieces for him. "There you go," she said. "Thanks, Rachel." Hearing him call her, that felt strange. Daniel used to call her that, but she realized she hadn't heard him say it in a long time. Mrs. Anderson didn't have much of an appetite either. She couldn't get the look in Daniel's eyes out of her head after she had hit him that morning. It was so cold and filled with an emotion she couldn't name. Thinking back, she realized Daniel had been through a lot lately. That wisteria trellis. His late father had built it with his own hands, and now it was gone, along with the vine. He must have been devastated. Rachel noticed her mother's strange mood. "Mom, what's wrong?" "I slapped Daniel this morning." Rachel stared at her, shocked. "You hit him? You've never laid a hand on him in his life." "I know," her mother said. "He must be heartbroken." Mrs. Anderson was filled with regret and couldn't eat another bite. "I have to go home and check on him." "But I'm not finished eating." Dylan pouted, his expression souring. You promised you'd have dinner with me, and I've barely touched my food. Rachel, you stay here with Dylan. I'm going home, her mother said. As she got up to leave, Rachel stood up too. She had been awful to Daniel lately, and she felt a terrible sense of guilt. Mom, I'm coming with you. What about me? Dylan asked. You can eat by yourself, Rachel said. Dylan stared at them, dumbfounded. They were actually abandoning him for Daniel. I'm coming with you, he insisted. When they got back to the house, the large mansion was eerily quiet. Daniel was nowhere to be found. Assuming he was in his room, his mother and Rachel went upstairs and knocked on his door. Daniel, are you in there? There was no response. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I never should have hit you. What do you want to eat? I'll make you your favorite ribs. How does that sound? Still, there was only silence. Rachel spoke up next. Daniel, I know I've been awful to you lately, and I'm so sorry. Please, let's just talk about this. She knocked on the door again. Daniel, please don't be angry, Dylan added. Your mother and sister didn't mean it. If you have to be mad at someone, be mad at me. His words only served to infuriate Rachel. Daniel, that's enough. Mom and I have both apologized. What more do you want? Her patience gone. She twisted the doorknob and pushed the door open. The room was empty. The window was open and the bed was neatly made. But his desk was bare. The family photo he always kept there was gone. A sense of panic began to rise in Rachel's chest. Something was very wrong. Mom, where's Daniel? Why isn't he here? I don't know, her mother replied. She noticed his closet door was slightly ajar and walked over to it. Inside, all of Daniel's belongings were gone. His clothes, his shoes, everything. Where are all his clothes? His mother stumbled backward, a terrible feeling of dread washing over her. How can this be? Where did all his things go? Rachel ran to her side, and her face went pale when she saw the empty closet. Do you think he ran away because he was angry with us? A flicker of a triumphant smile crossed Dylan's face. He had finally driven Daniel out of the house. That boy is just too much, his mother said with a sigh of relief. Rachel scoffed. Let him go. No one is to go looking for him this time. Let's see how long he lasts on his own. Ma'am, miss, you're back, the housekeeper said, approaching them with the small metal box Daniel had left. The young master is gone. He asked me to give this to you personally before he left. What is it? Rachel asked, taking the box nonchalantly. She opened it, and when she saw the diagnostic report inside, the color drained from her face. Her hands began to shake uncontrollably. Among all the medical jargon, one sentence stood out. Based on the pathological findings, the patient is diagnosed with nasopharyngeal carcinoma with metastasis to the lymph nodes. No, it's not possible, she whispered. In that moment, she knew Daniel had been telling the truth. He really had cancer. What is it? Rachel, what did you see? Her mother came over, and when she saw the report, her mind went blank. Daniel, she stammered, shaking her head in disbelief. No, this has to be fake. It can't be real. Dylan raised an eyebrow. He secretly hoped it was true. Only with Daniel dead could he truly become the heir to the Anderson fortune. He would never go back to the poverty he had grown up in. Mrs. Anderson, Rachel, don't worry, Dylan said smoothly. He probably just faked this report to get your attention. Daniel looks perfectly healthy. He doesn't look like someone with cancer. You think so? Rachel asked, desperate to believe him. Rachel blinked, her mind unable to process anything. She didn't know if Dylan was right or not. But Dad died of the same cancer, she said, her voice trembling. It's hereditary. Her mother's expression grew distant. That's right, Arthur died of it. Even if Daniel wanted to lie to us, he wouldn't lie about something like this. I have to call his doctor, Rachel said, her voice firm. No longer listening to Dylan, Rachel dialed the number on the report. Dr. Peterson, this is Rachel Anderson, Daniel Anderson's sister. I need to confirm something with you. Miss Anderson, yes, the doctor said, his voice urgent before she could even ask her question. I'm so glad you called. Mr. Anderson has late-stage nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Without immediate treatment, he could die at any time. You need to get him to a hospital as soon as possible. Her eyes flew open, and the phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. Impossible, she whispered. That's impossible. Daniel is so healthy, so full of life. How could he have cancer? She sank to the floor, stunned into silence. Her mother snatched the phone off the floor. The doctor's voice continued. Mr. Anderson didn't want to worry you, but he had decided to tell you. I saw you all at the hospital the other day. I assumed you were there to get him admitted for treatment. Why hasn't he come in yet? The two women looked at each other, their faces masks of pure regret. It was true. That day at the hospital, Daniel had told them he was sick, that he had cancer. and Rachel had just laughed in his face. She had mocked him, called him a liar. She had told him she wouldn't even cry if he died. "Daniel!" she cried out, a sudden thought striking her. She ran to the room where he kept all his treasured gifts. She threw open the door to find rows of empty shelves. All the gifts that had once filled the room were gone. "Mrs. Wallace," she screamed, "where is everything? Where are all of his things?" The housekeeper hurried over. "On his birthday, Sir instructed us to throw everything away after he came home." Throw them away? Rachel couldn't believe it. But those were his most prized possessions. Why would he throw them away? "He did, miss. And he burned all the photos of you, his mother, and Miss Miller." At those words, Rachel's last bit of composure shattered completely. "Daniel!" she screamed, slamming her fist against the wall in a fit of despair. Dylan rushed to her side, grabbing her hand. "Rachel, are you okay? You're bleeding. Don't touch me." Rachel shoved him away and stumbled back downstairs. When Mrs. Anderson saw the empty room, the shock was too much, and she fainted. "Ma'am!" "Mrs. Anderson." Dylan and the housekeeper rushed to her side. Rachel didn't know how she made it down the stairs. It was only a short flight, but each step felt like it weighed a ton. Miss Miller is here," the housekeeper announced. The door opened and Sarah walked in, beaming. Her parents had finally given in and agreed to let her marry Dylan. As she left, her mother had only said, "Just don't come to regret this." But she knew she wouldn't. Dylan was so much better than Daniel. "Rachel, where's Dylan?" she asked brightly. Seeing Sarah walk in laden with gifts, Rachel's expression turned glacial. "What's wrong?" "You look terrible," Sarah said, her own face bright with a joyous smile. "Where's your mom? Tell her to come down. I'm here to get engaged to her son, Dylan. I've even brought my dowry. My mother has only one son, and his name is Daniel. And I have only one brother," Rachel said, her voice like ice. Sarah frowned, taken aback by her tone. "What's wrong with you?" For months, Rachel had doted on Dylan far more than Daniel. After Dylan arrived, hadn't they all grown tired of Daniel? How could his spoiled attitude compare to Dylan, who was so gentle and sweet and needed their protection? "Sarah, Daniel is dying. Did you know that?" "Please," Sarah scoffed. "You actually believe that? Think of all the lies he's told for attention since Dylan came to live with you. You can't possibly still believe him." Seeing her disbelief, Rachel angrily threw the diagnostic report in her face. "See for yourself." When Sarah saw the report, her expression faltered, a flicker of shock in her eyes, but she remained defiant. "That's impossible. How could he have the same illness as your father?" An image of Daniel from the past few days flashed in her mind. His pale face, his thin frame. She didn't know when it started, but he had lost so much weight. And she didn't know when he had changed so much. On his birthday, none of them had gotten him a gift. They had spent the entire day with Dylan, and he hadn't even gotten angry. The old Daniel would have thrown a fit if they'd forgotten his birthday. He never would have been so quiet. When had he changed? It seemed to have started about a month after Dylan arrived. A wave of panic washed over Sarah. "Where is he?" she asked, looking around frantically. Rachel sank onto the sofa, defeated. "He's gone." "Gone where?" Sarah stared at her in disbelief. "He's dying, and you just let him leave? How should I know?" Rachel snapped, her eyes red with tears. "He's my brother. Do you have any idea how I feel right now?" "Sarah, my brother is dying, and you're still planning to marry Dylan? Weren't you the one who was so desperate to marry my brother?" "Rachel, you know I never really loved Daniel." "You didn't love him? Then why did you tell my mother in high school that you were going to marry him? Why did you get engaged the second you graduated?" Rachel shoved her angrily. "And after he jumped into the pool to save you when you were kids, even though he couldn't swim, and you have a nerve to talk." Sarah shot back. "When you had that fever that wouldn't break, didn't Daniel stay up with you for nights on end? He almost got pneumonia from you." After their outburst, the two women looked at each other, the full weight of their mistakes crashing down on them. Daniel had a bit of temper, but other than that, he was a good person. He was kind-hearted and would do anything for the people he loved. He had only started to change after Dylan arrived. The room fell silent. The quiet was broken when Dylan came downstairs and saw Sarah standing there with all the gifts. A huge smile spread across his face. "Sarah, is this real? Are you really going to marry me?" How could he not be ecstatic? Daniel was dying, and Sarah was going to marry him. This was the happiest moment of his life. He pulled Sarah into a hug, so overjoyed that he completely forgot that Rachel was still reeling from the news of her brother's illness. For some reason, looking at Dylan now, Sarah felt nothing. She pushed him away gently. "I'm sorry, Dylan. With what's happened to Daniel, I can't marry you right now. Before Dylan could respond, Sarah was already instructing her staff to take all the gifts back. As they began to carry things out, Dylan's face darkened. Why? Just because Daniel is dying, does that mean the rest of us have to put our lives on hold? What did you just say? Rachel stared at him, her face ashen as she began to tremble. Dylan, I treated you like my own brother. My mother treated you like her own son. My brother is dying, and you can say something so cruel? Do you even have a heart? Realizing his mistake, Dylan quickly tried to backtrack. I'm sorry, Rachel. I was just upset. Sarah, he reached for Sarah's hand, but she had already turned away from him. Rachel, you really have no idea where he went? Sarah asked. Rachel shook her head, running her hands through her hair in frustration. I don't know. Have you tried calling him? Sarah pulled out her phone and quickly dialed his number, which she knew by heart. For years, it had seemed that no matter what, if she called, Daniel would be there. The call went straight to voicemail. Sarah looked at Rachel, her heart sinking. He blocked my number. Rachel quickly tried calling from her own phone, but got the same result. He blocked me too, she whispered. Tears streamed down her face as she finally broke down and cried. The little brother who had adored her, who had followed her everywhere, was so disappointed in her that he would never forgive her. What about iMessage? Sarah said, opening the app. She realized Dylan was her pinned contact and had to scroll for a long time before she found Daniel's name. When she opened their chat history, she saw it was almost entirely one-sided, with message after message from Daniel, and she had barely ever replied. A wave of guilt washed over her as she quickly typed a message. Daniel, where are you? She hit send, only to be met with a glaring red notification. Sarah froze, her legs suddenly feeling weak. He deleted me from his contacts. When Rachel tried to send a message, she discovered the same thing. Dylan watched all of this from the sidelines, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. He hit quickly, but not before Sarah saw it. In that instant, she realized that maybe Dylan wasn't the person she thought he was. She realized now that she had been wrong about so many things, had misjudged Daniel so terribly. She pulled out her phone and called her assistant. I need you to find Daniel Anderson. Check hospital admission records, flight manifests, immigration records. I don't care what it takes. I need to know where he is. Now, after she hung up, Dylan offered her a glass of water. Sarah, don't panic. Here, drink some water. I don't want it, she said, pushing it away. I have to find Daniel. She pushed past Dylan and headed for the door. I'm coming with you, Rachel said, catching up to her. Watching the two of them leave, abandoning him for Daniel, Dylan gritted his teeth. Daniel, he muttered under his breath. You'd better just die out there and never be found. Montana was beautiful. From its vast plains to its natural ranches, the beauty was breathtaking. Daniel remembered his father talking about this place, saying that when Daniel was older, he would take him here on vacation. His father had grown up on a ranch and was an expert rider. He had promised to teach Daniel one day. But that promise was never fulfilled, and now, Daniel no longer had the strength to ride. He checked into a local hospital. After the examination, the doctor shook his head grimly. We'll do everything we can, Mr. Anderson, but you need to be prepared. Going through this alone will be very difficult. It would be best if you had family here with you. You should call them. Daniel shook his head. There's no need. I don't have any family. I can handle this on my own. He wasn't afraid of dying. In fact, he was looking forward to seeing his father again. Back home, Rachel and Sarah hadn't slept in days, consumed with finding Daniel. Finally, Sarah's assistant called. They had found him. He was in Montana. Rachel froze. She remembered their father telling Daniel that when he was older, he would take him to Montana to go riding. After their father died, Daniel had asked her several times to take him there, to go with him, but she had always been too busy. And then Dylan came, and she had forgotten all about it. Her eyes filled with tears. Book me a flight, she told her assistant. I'm going to find him, right now. She couldn't bear the thought of her dying brother, all alone in a strange place, suffering. I'm going too, her mother said. After fainting, Mrs. Anderson's health had taken a turn for the worse. She was so grief-stricken she could barely walk. Rachel tried to soothe her. Mom, don't worry. I promise I'll bring Daniel back safe and sound. You should stay here and rest. She's right, Mrs. Anderson, Sarah added. Rachel and I will go. Dylan looked on, a flicker of anxiety in his eyes. Sarah, you're going too? He asked. Yes, she replied, her voice cold. Dylan was furious, but he knew better than to show it. Then go. What are you waiting for? Their mother urged. The two women left immediately without even packing a bag. On the way to the airport, Rachel's phone rang. It was the hospital. They said Dylan, believing Sarah was abandoning him and refusing to marry him, had attempted suicide by slitting his wrists. He was in the hospital now. Has he lost his mind? Sarah muttered. Sarah's face was grim. She never would have thought that the gentle Dylan would do something so drastic. What is wrong with him? Rachel said, exasperated. He's never been this reckless. Daniel has cancer. We're all worried sick, and he pulls a stunt like this. They had no choice but to turn around and head for the hospital. The entire drive, Rachel's expression was grim. She thought about the past few months, how she had hurt Daniel again and again, all for Dylan. She couldn't imagine how much pain she had caused him. Her mother had even hit him for Dylan. He had once been the golden boy, admired by everyone. And now, he was alone, in a strange place, dying of cancer. When they arrived at the hospital, they went straight to Dylan's room. He was lying in bed, his face pale and his wrist bandaged. When he saw them, his eyes immediately filled with tears. Rachel, Sarah, I'm so sorry to worry you, he said. Rachel looked at him, her expression a mixture of pity and confusion. What were you thinking, Dylan? Why would you do this? I was scared, Dylan said, his voice weak. Sarah, I was afraid you were leaving me. I was afraid you would go and never come back, that you wouldn't marry me. I'm so scared of losing you. He began to sob, his breathing ragged. Sarah felt a pang of pity for him. Dylan, you're being silly. But as she looked at him, all she could think about was Daniel. She and Daniel had known each other their whole lives. She had only known Dylan for a few months. How could it possibly compare? I'm so scared, he continued. My mother died in an accident when she was in the army, and my father abandoned me. I've been an orphan my whole life, and I'm terrified of being abandoned again. Sarah, please don't leave me. He clung to Sarah, refusing to let go. Rachel glanced at her watch. Her flight was in 3 hours. She had to go. Sarah, she said, maybe you should stay. Marry Dylan. She couldn't afford to waste any more time here. Every day she delayed was another day Daniel was alone. Who knew how much time he had left? A flicker of hope lit up in Dylan's eyes, and he looked at Sarah expectantly. He had been in love with Sarah from the moment Mrs. Anderson had brought him to their home. He knew she was Daniel's fiance, but that hadn't stopped him. He had used every trick he knew to turn her against Daniel and make her fall for him instead. He had worked too hard to let Daniel ruin it all now. He wanted it all, the Anderson fortune and Sarah. He would do whatever it took to escape the poverty of his past. I'm sorry, Sarah said, looking him in the eye. Until I find Daniel, I can't marry you. Why not? He demanded. Dylan couldn't believe that the same woman who had defended him, who had knelt in the snow to break her engagement for him, was now refusing to marry him. Dylan, she said, when I find Daniel, I'll come back and explain everything. Sarah and Rachel shared a look, then left the room without a backward glance. Watching them go, Dylan swept everything off the bedside table in a fit of rage, his eyes burning with hatred. Daniel, I hate you, he seethed. After their plane landed, it took some time for Sarah and Rachel to finally locate the hospital where Daniel was staying. When they arrived, they found him lying in bed, looking frail and emaciated. In just a few short days, he had wasted away to almost nothing. He couldn't eat, his hearing was failing, and he was being kept alive by an 4 drip. Mr. Anderson, the nurse said gently, you have some visitors. The nurse came in, and her heart went out to him when she saw his gaunt face. Trying to cheer him up, she said with a smile, they're 2 very beautiful women. You have surgery scheduled soon. How about we get you outside for a little sunshine first? Daniel blinked. 2 beautiful women? It couldn't be Sarah and Rachel. I don't want to see anyone, he said. He knew how awful he must look, and he didn't want anyone to see him like this. Let me go. I need to see my brother. A commotion erupted outside the door, and Daniel thought he could faintly make out Rachel's voice. She had always had a short temper, easily provoked to anger. Whenever something didn't go her way, she would explode. And when no one else in the family could calm her down, they would send Daniel. Rachel had always adored her little brother, and the moment he spoke to her, her anger would melt away. The memories were so clear, yet they felt like they belonged to another lifetime. Daniel, are you in there? Rachel's voice called from the hallway. Daniel, it's me, it's your sister. I'm here to see you. Please, just let me see you. It really was her. Daniel's dark eyes flickered toward the door. He could see several figures in the hallway. A few doctors were blocking Rachel, preventing her from entering the room. Miss, I'm sorry, but you can't go in. Mr. Anderson doesn't want to see you. Why not? I'm his sister. Rachel's voice broke, and she began to sob. She yelled into the room, Daniel, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. You've always loved me most, right, Daniel? Tears streamed down her face. Daniel closed his eyes, a bitter taste filling his mouth. The sister he had loved so much had become Dylan's sister long ago. That's your sister out there, the nurse said gently. Are you sure you don't want to see her? The nurse tried to reason with him, but was interrupted when someone suddenly climbed through the open window. Daniel. He heard a woman's voice, and his body went still. He slowly opened his eyes and saw Sarah, her face a mask of shock. She stood frozen in place, unable to move. Sarah couldn't believe her eyes. The vibrant, energetic Daniel she remembered was gone. In his place was a man who looked like a dying invalid. So thin he was nothing but skin and bones, as frail as a piece of paper. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her hands trembled at her sides, and she felt her legs might give out from under her. Her lips moved, but all she could manage to whisper was, Daniel, Miss, you can't be in here. Please leave, or I'll have to call security, the nurse said. She tried to usher Sarah out, but she wouldn't budge. It's fine, Daniel said, his voice raspy. Let them in. He was too tired to fight anymore. He didn't have much time left anyway. Let them say what they came to say. The door flew open, and Rachel rushed in. The moment she saw Daniel, her eyes filled with tears. She fell to her knees beside his bed and grabbed his hand, her voice filled with anguish. Daniel, how did you get so thin? Why? Why didn't you tell me you were this sick? I did tell you, Daniel said, his voice flat as he pulled his hand away. You just didn't believe me. I know. I'm a terrible sister. How could I not have believed you? Rachel began to slap herself across the face, again and again. Please forgive me. Let me take you home. Rachel, he said, you and I are done. I don't have a sister, he continued, and you don't have a brother. Your only brother is Dylan. His words felt like a hand closing around Rachel's throat, and she couldn't breathe. Daniel, I was wrong. I never should have chosen a stranger over you. I know I was wrong. I truly do. Please come home with me. Mom misses you so much. Daniel, I'm not going to marry Dylan, Sarah said, kneeling beside Rachel. I'm not marrying him. It's you I love. Come home with me. I swear I'll take care of you for the rest of my life. Her voice was choked with sobs, and tears streamed down her cheeks. He couldn't remember ever seeing Sarah cry before, not even when she was a child and her father would beat her so badly she was covered in bruises. She had never shed a single tear. He looked at her now, crying for him, promising not to marry Dylan. A bitter, sarcastic smile touched his lips. Was this all just pity? I will not forgive you, and I'm not going back with you. Rachel, from the first time you told me to get out, I swore that you were no longer my sister. Then, he turned to Sarah. And you, Sarah, you probably didn't know this, but that call you got the day you broke off our engagement, I was the one who had the streamer make that call. What? Sarah's heart plummeted. She had always thought Dylan had made that call to test her feelings. She never imagined it had been Daniel. I heard you with my own ears, telling her that you love Dylan. And now you're telling me you want to marry me? That you love me? That's hilarious. His words stripped her of any courage to respond. Her heart felt like it was splitting in two. She wanted to explain, to say something. Just then, the nurse came back in. Mr. Anderson, it's time for your procedure. Procedure? Rachel panicked, tightening her grip on Daniel's hand. What procedure? Is it happening right now? Sarah was terrified. She had a terrible feeling that if he went through that door, she would never see him again. I don't want to see either of you again, Daniel said. Go home. He looked up at the nurse. I'm ready. He was transferred to a gurney, and the doctors and nurses began to wheel him out of the room. Sarah and Rachel stumbled after them. As they reached the doors to the operating room, Rachel cried out, her voice hoarse. Daniel, when Mom found out you were sick, she collapsed. She's in the hospital. She couldn't come. You have to be okay. I promised her I would bring you home safe. She said she's so sorry she hit you. She regrets it so much, and she'll never do it again. Please forgive her. Forgive me. Sarah added, Daniel, don't worry. I'll be right here waiting for you when you get out. I swear, I'll never marry anyone but you. Daniel didn't respond. He just closed his eyes and said quietly, Nurse, please, let's go. Mr. Anderson, the nurse said gently. The doctor explained the risks of this surgery. There's a chance you might not wake up. Is there anything you want to say to your family? Daniel shook his head, his eyes firmly closed. I have nothing to say. The doors to the operating room swung shut, leaving the two women staring at them, frozen in place. During the procedure, there was a complication. Daniel's vital signs became unstable. His heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing grew erratic. Soon, he lost consciousness. In the haze, he saw a white light. His father was standing in the light, beckoning to him. "Daniel, come on. Come to me." His father looked just as handsome and young as he remembered. He missed his father so much. He walked toward him without a second thought. He could hear voices calling his name. "Mr. Anderson, you have to hold on. Mr. Anderson, there are people waiting for you at home. You can't die." But Daniel didn't want to listen. He just wanted his father. No one else in the world loved him anymore. Finally, he was in his father's arms. His father took his hand and led him away. After what felt like an eternity, the doors opened. The surgeon walked out, removed his mask, and shook his head. "I'm sorry," he said. "We did everything we could. There were complications during the surgery." He didn't make it. A guttural scream tore from Rachel's throat. Daniel, you can't die. Your mother hasn't even had a chance to say goodbye. You can't die." Sarah tried to force her way into the operating room, but a nurse held her back. "Miss, please calm down. You can't go in there. Let me go. I have to see him. I don't believe he's dead. I don't believe it." Rachel was inconsolable. "Please, just let me see my brother one last time," she begged. The doctor sighed. "I'm sorry. Before he passed, Mr. Anderson said he didn't want to see you again. You should go home." Rachel couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You didn't want to see me? Even in death? You didn't want to see me?" "Yes," the doctor said. "It was his final wish. We have to respect that. I'm his sister. Can't I at least take his body home for a proper funeral?" "Excuse me, Dr. Peterson, where is Mr. Anderson's body?" As they argued, a man from the local funeral home arrived. "Mr. Anderson made his arrangements with us before he passed," the man said. "We will be handling his funeral and cremation. As per his wishes, his ashes will be scattered here on the plains of Montana. He will not be returned home." "That's impossible," Rachel said, shaking her head. She was numb from crying, beyond feeling any more pain. She stared at the doors of the operating room and sank to her knees, completely defeated. "I don't believe it. I don't believe Daniel would do this to us. He has a mother and a sister. Why would he arrange for a service like this?" "I can't speak to that," the man said. But Mr. Anderson was very clear. He said he had no family. The man then took out a small tablet. "Oh, and Mr. Anderson contacted us shortly before he passed. He said if anyone tried to prevent us from taking his body, we were to show them this video." He played the video, and Daniel's handsome, though gaunt, face appeared on the screen. Sarah reached out to touch it, her fingers meeting only the cold glass. "Rachel, Sarah, if you're seeing this, it means I'm gone. It's possible you'll never see this at all, that I'll just disappear and you won't even come looking for me. I know that in your eyes, I'm difficult and unlikable, while Dylan is kind and gentle. So of course you all love him. So, just as you've always wanted, I'll be leaving you for good. Sarah, I remember the day I got my diagnosis. I was devastated, and I wanted to tell you. But then I overheard you telling my mother that you didn't want to marry me, that you were in love with Dylan. So I agreed to call off the wedding. Since you never loved me, I decided to set you free. Rachel, do you have any idea how much courage it took for me to tell you I had cancer? And you told me you wouldn't shed a single tear if I died. I hope, for your sake, that's true. And Mom, ever since Dylan arrived, you gave all your love to him. You believed everything he said and never believed me. He said I stole from him. You believed it. He said I pushed him down the stairs. You believed it. He said I abandoned him at the mall. You believed that too. But I never did any of those things. I know that even now, you probably won't believe me. But it doesn't matter anymore. Mom, I don't forgive you. And in my next life, I won't be your son. I, Daniel Anderson, have nothing more to do with the Anderson family. You don't need to worry about my funeral arrangements." The video ended. Both women's faces were streaked with tears. They stared at the dark screen, sobbing uncontrollably. They had never imagined that in just a few short months, Daniel had been suffering so much. "Daniel," Rachel whispered, her voice breaking. "Now that you've seen the video, you understand," the man said. "I'll be taking Mr. Anderson to be cremated now." He took Daniel's body away, and Sarah and Rachel never even got to say a final goodbye. After the cremation, only ashes remained. The funeral home staff took the ashes to the largest prairie in Montana, and there they scattered them across the vast, open land. Sarah and Rachel, dressed in black, watched from a distance as Daniel's ashes were carried away by the wind, their hearts breaking. After the funeral, they returned home. They hadn't been able to bring Daniel back, not even a photograph. When they landed, Mrs. Anderson was waiting for them at the airport. She rushed toward them, her eyes scanning the crowd, searching for Daniel. Where's Daniel? Where is he? Didn't he come back with you? Rachel looked down, her eyes red and swollen. I'm sorry, Mom. Daniel, What? What happened to Daniel? He's gone. What? Mrs. Anderson's body went rigid with shock, as still as a statue. She couldn't process it. Her beloved son, her only son. Daniel! She shrieked a gut-wrenching cry. She coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed. Rachel and Sarah rushed her to the hospital. When Dylan heard Sarah was back, he immediately came to the hospital. He found her and began pleading with her to marry him, but she refused him again. I'm sorry, Dylan. I can't marry you. Sarah, say that again, he demanded, his body trembling with rage. Daniel is dead, and you're telling me you won't marry me? That's right, she said. The man I love is Daniel, and even though he's dead, I still love him. The words were barely out of her mouth when Dylan pulled a knife from behind his back and stabbed her in the stomach. Blood sprayed across his face, and the warm shock of it seemed to bring him back to his senses. He dropped the knife and stumbled backward in horror. Why? Why did you lie to me? She had never imagined he could be so violent. Sarah looked down at the blood pouring from her wound and thought, maybe it would be better to die. Then she could be with Daniel. Dylan, what have you done? Rachel screamed when she saw Sarah had been stabbed. She called for a doctor and was about to call the police, but Sarah stopped her. Don't, she said. He didn't mean it. It seems everything Daniel said was true, Rachel said, her voice filled with regret. If they had never brought Dylan into their home, Daniel wouldn't have been hurt so badly, wouldn't have been driven to run away and die alone. If only they had known he was sick, they would have gotten him treatment. Things never would have gotten this far. Luckily, the knife hadn't gone in too deep, and Sarah's injury wasn't life-threatening. Mrs. Anderson regained consciousness, but she was never the same. Her health declined rapidly, and she was emotionally unstable. She kept saying she could see Daniel, and that she would be with him soon. The doctors said the shock of losing her son had broken her mind, and that she would likely never recover. Rachel took her mother home and made arrangements to send Dylan away. As she was packing his things, Dylan fell to his knees, sobbing. No, Rachel, please don't send me away. I'll be good, I promise. I'll never lie again. I'll never say anything bad about Daniel. I'm not your sister, Rachel said, her voice cold. And she's not your mother. And you are not worthy to even speak Daniel's name. She closed her eyes. Get him out of here. I never want to see him again. The security guard began to drag Dylan out, but he struggled, pleading, Rachel, you've always liked me, haven't you? Just let me stay, and I'll do anything to repay you. Anything you want. Hearing his words, a bitter, self-mocking smile touched Rachel's lips. Anything I want? Yes, anything, Dylan said, desperate to stay. He pushed the guard away and walked over to Rachel, leaning in to whisper in her ear. Rachel, I know you want me. I can be yours right now. Just let me stay. Looking at the man before her, Rachel felt like the biggest fool in the world. How could she have been so blind? How could she have hurt her own brother over and over for a man like this? She hated herself for it. Rachel waved a dismissive hand, closing her eyes. Dylan, I wish my mother had never brought you into our home. What? Dylan froze, true panic setting in. Rachel, you don't mean that. You used to care about me so much. You promised my mother you would always take care of me. He cried out in despair, refusing to leave. Rachel just sighed. Take him away, she said, the words falling from her lips like ice. Dylan looked at her, and the last of his hope died. He stopped struggling. He knew he had been wrong. He had been too greedy. When he first arrived, Daniel had been nothing but kind to him. But he had coveted his sister, his mother, and his fiancée, wanting everything Daniel had for himself. And now he had nothing. After Dylan was gone, Rachel began to put the house back the way it was. She planted a new wisteria vine in the backyard and built a new trellis with her own hands. Daniel, she whispered to the empty yard, when the wisteria blooms next year, will you come back and see it? I miss you so much. At the airport, the final boarding call for a flight to Montana was announced. As Sarah prepared to board, her mother wept uncontrollably. Sarah, you have to promise you'll come back and visit us. We'll miss you so much, her mother cried. I will, Sarah said with a small smile, and walked through the gate without looking back. Where a plane landed in Montana, she bought the stretch of prairie where Daniel's ashes had been scattered. She planted it with wildflowers and bought a few horses. Sometimes, she would have visitors who came to ride. When she was alone, She would spend her days just staring up at the sky. On clear days, she could almost see Daniel's silhouette against the horizon, smiling and waving at her. "Daniel, are you okay?" she would whisper to the wind. "I miss you so much." "Daniel, if I could go back in time, I would hold onto your hand and never let you go. I wouldn't give regret a chance to come between us."